Hi there, and welcome to Module 4. So I thought I would take some time to kind of provide an overview of Module 4, especially since some of you aren't able to come to live sessions. I thought I would do a quick recording for you and kind of walk you through what's expected for Module 4. So let's get right to it. So Module 4 is on ableism, and like the Blackboard says, you'll need some extra time this week to engage with all of the things that you're expected to do this week. And so let's quickly look at the module tasks and materials. So this week, we're really looking at ableism, how you define ableism, how ableism impacts disabled and non-disabled people. And then we're going to talk about some strategies for becoming anti-ableist, which is why we have the textbook that we do. That's all about becoming anti-ableist. So before we can really become anti-ableist, we have to have a better understanding what ableism actually is. So this week you're going to read chapters 8 through 14, and then you're going to watch a short video called Casual Ableist Language. And so there's some things in there that'll help us understand the types of things that we say that actually could be interpreted as ableist or viewed as ableist. So one example of that I see a lot, especially in writing intensive courses, is using the phrase eye-opening, or this really opened my eyes. And while that on the surface doesn't seem like an ableist comment, because that's definitely not the intention, it's used as a way to explain that something broadened my understanding or made me think differently or more deeply about something. And so, but instead of saying that, we often will use disability metaphors like opened my eyes. And so, in some ways, what that implies is that you have to have you have to be a sighted person to gain some sort of enlightenment or a deeper meaning. And so, while not openly ableist, it does have ableist undertones. So those are some things to keep in mind. We also use phrases like turned a blind eye to. That's another ableist phrase that people will often use. And what they really mean is that somebody's just ignoring it. So instead of saying that it's being ignored, we'll say that someone turned a blind eye to it. So disability can often be used as a metaphor. And what we really want to do is try to avoid using disability in that way and actually just saying what we really mean. So there are also disability euphemisms that come into play, like instead of saying disabled, we'll say people with special needs or children with special needs. Well, the disability community often will ask the question like, what about our needs are actually special? Like, how are our needs different from anyone else's? And so there are a lot of actual videos and articles out there that talk about disability euphemisms, and saying things like differently abled, or even saying, going so far as to say like everyone has a disability. Just because everyone has strengths in areas of weakness doesn't mean that everyone's disabled. So we have to be really mindful about the ways that we're talking about disability and how we're using disability as a metaphor when we could just say what we actually mean. Okay, so that's just to get us started. So there are two podcasts. One is on lateral ableism, which might really help you start to understand why some disabled people might support eugenics. So that's a really good podcast. And then the other one is about inspiration porn, which is a really interesting, deeper look at um, things that position disabled people as objects of pity, but also it exploits them, right? So inspiration porn are things that um, situations where we use disabled people for the benefit of non-disabled people. So it makes non-disabled people feel um, less, I guess, sorry for themselves because, as bad as your life might be, you could be someone who's a wheelchair user. So those types of things are examples of inspiration porn. So that's a great podcast to listen to. So you can choose one of those, or if you have extra time, both. But this week I do have you busy with a lot of things, so you might not have time, but you could actually bookmark it for later. Okay, so assignments this week. You'll have your third disability blog. So I've given you feedback on the first one and the second one. So this is the third one. So I'm really hoping that you're taking the feedback that I'm giving you and incorporating it. And so blog number 3 will be top notch. So remember to put your most recent blog at the top of your document. So this should be a running document of all of your blogs. So all of them should be in one place, one document. And the most recent one should always be at the top so that I don't have to scroll through to find it, but it's right at the top. So essentially it goes in descending order. So it'll be blog 3, blog 2, blog 1. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is a models of and stereotypes of disability matrix. I did do a recording for that assignment. If you recall, I did that last week, I think. So you can check last week's module for that. But you're basically going to just create a graphic representation of 4 models of disability and the stereotypes that are kind of associated with or came out of those models. You have a virtual bulletin board to engage with, and then I really want you to start your real disabilities. Watch the films and kind of start thinking about what models of disability are showing up and what stereotypes are you seeing. So it's a busy week. Again, watch this video. So this is Annie Elaney, and she is a phenomenal disability activist. And so she has a YouTube channel. This is just one example of the videos that she posts, but you could follow her if you're interested. She posts some really important information. And then your podcasts are linked below. Okay, so moving out of the module tasks and materials, we'll go to here's the models and stereotypes of disability matrix assignment. So here's just a brief explanation of it. But again, I think if you go back to module 3 and take a look at the recording, if you have questions, that might help answer those questions for you. And then the virtual bulletin board is here. And so the link you'll find here will take you to the virtual bulletin board. And it looks like some people have already posted, which is phenomenal. So really what I want you to do is just be thinking of where you see ableism showing up in the world around you. So are there things that you've seen, things you've experienced, things you've heard, things you're reading that have ableist undertones, or maybe they're openly ableist. So I want you to be thinking about things that you're experiencing that could fall under the category of ableism and post it here on this Padlet. And then the next thing is your blog, vlog 3. So I want to talk about what to put here. So just a caveat. You can use these 5 prompts to help you organize your disability blog. If you feel like you want to go beyond these, feel free. So I guess what I'm saying is that you're coming from different backgrounds and perspectives, and you all have different experiences with disability. So if you feel somewhat limited by the questions that I'm asking and you want to dig deeper or you want to actually talk more about a concept that I don't have a prompt for, feel free to do that. The idea of these blog posts is that you have an opportunity to demonstrate to me that you're reading the chapter, watching the videos, and listening to the podcasts. And so in some cases, I might not have a prompt specific to the podcast, but please feel free to incorporate what you've learned from the podcast in your responses. So for those of you who are in the disability studies and community inclusion minor, you've heard some of this content before, especially the history of disability. Now we're getting into things that you may not have heard before. But if you're feeling like, yeah, I've heard this before, feel free to take it in a different direction or go a little bit deeper. I'm not grading your blogs on how well you answer each of these individual posts. What I'm actually looking for is how deeply you're engaging with the material. So if there's something in the chapter or the podcast or the videos that really speaks to you and you want to talk about it, please do that. What I'm actually evaluating is your ability to kind of synthesize all this information, attach it or connect it to something you've experienced, and even thinking about how it connects to current times, like what is happening out in our world right now related to disability. And spoiler alert, there's a lot. So those are the things I'm looking for. So this week, I want you to think about how you explains ableism, especially systemic and institutional ableism, and then give some examples of that. Um, Explain and give examples of ableist microaggressions. Those are sometimes hard to identify in the moment. So really think about what she's saying in the chapter and if you've experienced or noticed any of those. And then explain how they are different from casual ableism. I really want you to think about internalized ableism and its consequences because it has really significant implications for disabled people. When we internalize ableist messages, what does that actually mean um, for our success and our independence and our interdependence and our relationships and employment? So think about the impact of internalized ableism across the board. And then thinking about strategies for moving past our ableist guilt and toward constructive action. So, which of the 5 strategies could you commit to doing and explain how? This is an important part. You, like I said, you have some flexibility with the content, but I am really interested in every semester I have students say, yeah, this is really important information, but now what do I do with it? Like, yeah, it's great to know that stereotypes exist, but what am I supposed to do? And so I love that our textbook actually gives us actionable steps of things that we could do. And so I want you to think about those things. Share 3 disabled influencers you plan to follow on social media, on LinkedIn or YouTube. And then explain how engaging with their content might help you move towards being anti-ableist. So ask 2 or 3 family or friends or family members to follow them. And how do they respond if you ask them to do it? Like, are they eager to do it, willing to do it? Do they do it kind of begrudgingly? Or are they asking you like, what, why would I do that? Um, so those are 5 prompts. Again, you don't have to answer all 5. You can take it in a different direction if you'd like to. But I will say that one of the key pieces for me in this module is really I want to really understand what you're committed to doing to push past ableist guilt and to actually become an anti-ableist advocate. So hopefully this is a helpful explanation as you're working towards blog 3. I don't know if I have anyone who's actually submitting vlogs, so I guess we'll just move on and call it blogging. So um, that's those are your tasks for this week. So I'm going to take a look at your Padlet and the different films that you're thinking about, and I'll put some responses in there too. So go back to that Padlet and take a look and make sure that you're set to go with your films. And then if you have questions, let me know. But we won't have a live session this week because I kind of went over what the expectations are here. If you have questions, though, please feel free to contact me. Oh, I do want to just remind you, I feel like I have to remind you all the time, that you can reach me here. All you have to do, if you need to schedule an appointment with me to kind of talk about where you're at in the class, or if you have concerns about where you're at in the class, or any assignments that are coming up, or even assignments you've already completed, you can click here to book an appointment with me. Just click that button, and then my bookings link will pop up and it'll show you. I would have to sign in, but anyway, for you, it'll pop up for you and it'll show you when I'm available and you can schedule a meeting with me. And then we'll meet right here in my WebEx room. So hopefully that was really helpful information for you. And again, let me know if you have questions.